From your Chapter 18 folder, open the file Chapter 1805 Dimensions. We need to actually know where things go in the project so that they can be set out, so that we don't just leave it to the tradie to go and stick it where he likes or where he thinks it should go. So, from the Annotate tab, we have the ability to create dimensions. Notice on the Dimension panel, we have the ability to change our dimension types. Here we've got a linear dimension style with different types associated with them. So we can define all the different types of dimension styles that we need for our project. New to Revit 2014 is the ability to have alternate units. So if our initial units are set at millimeters, we could specify either to the right or below alternate units, which could be, rather than millimeters, meters and centimeters, or if you're that way inclined, feet and fractional inches. We can then specify alternate units prefix or suffix, and then click on OK. When creating dimensions, here I'm selecting the aligned dimension, rather than the more traditional methods of selecting the end point of a line. Here we're selecting objects, like a grid or a diffuser. Let's take a look at this a bit more clearly. If I dimension to the grid, then selecting the diffuser, I'm selecting a reference point, which happens to be the midpoint of the diffuser. Then click to place the dimension. If I want to create a dimension string, then I select the diffuser and then the corresponding diffusers that I want to appear in my dimension string. Then once again, click to place the dimension. Notice how we have an EQ symbol with a red strike through it. This is a toggle that toggles between an equal dimension, which it obviously isn't right now, so we can click on the toggle, and that creates an equality dimension. Selecting on the dimension string, we can see that the equality display is showing equality text. We can change this to be a value. Now if we want these spaced out at a particular spacing, I can select one of the diffusers, change this to say 3500, and now all my diffusers are spaced at 3500. This equality dimension is known as a constraint. We can constrain our other diffusers to the ones that we've just dimensioned. From the Modify tab, click on Align. I'm going to use the original diffuser as my start point and the correspondingly opposite diffuser to align it to, and now lock it in place. I'll do the same with the other two diffusers, remembering to lock them into place. Now if I make a change to the dimension, all the diffusers have moved correspondingly. Now say I want to move these diffusers in relation to the grid line. Selecting my original equality dimension, I can lock both those dimensions. Now if I select the very first diffuser, I can alter this dimension to say 1000, and all the diffusers will move. Let's see what happens if I delete a dimension string that has equality constraints attached to it. Select the dimension string and delete it. A warning message appears. This warning message can be ignored, but what it's saying is a dimension with a lock and or equal constraints is being deleted, but the elements will still be constrained. Push unconstrained to remove the constraints or OK to leave the elements constrained. Well, let's leave them constrained, click on OK and see what happens. If I select one of the diffusers, notice how the locks and the EQ symbol are still available to us. So if we make changes, the elements still move, with the locks in place. This is great for the initial design, but as your project progresses, the more of these constraints you add into the model, potentially the slower the model can get, and you can get into the point where things are so constrained that you just can't move anything. It's a matter of practice and finding out the right balance.